Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the afternoon. Joining me on this beautiful Friday, it is Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor.
And a happy Go Birds Day to you too, William.
It's tremendous that it's actually, last year I did try to wear Eagles stuff on the Friday before game week and everything. It's tonight. They actually play some Friday night football. I'm really looking forward to this. It's weird, the whole thing. They're in Brazil. It's a Friday, but it's Philly, man. It's always weird.
Yeah,
so
it's never normal.
I think it just kind of goes with the motif of the city.
And let's be honest, in 6 years, there's going to be an NFL game on every single night. They're definitely trending in that direction, so we might as well just get used to this.
I would assume that's what's going.
They want to own every day of the week. They do.
I think they would leave Saturdays to college.
No, I think they want to beat college. They had a bunch of Saturday games at the end of last season in December and such.
They do it once the college season ends.
Yeah, true.
But I wonder if they would leave one day. It seems like they leave 1 month of this because it's a year-round schedule.
Right.
But they leave 1 month for the NBA Finals.
Right.
And then it's we get right back at it.
Yeah, we're right back.
Yeah, now we announce our schedules, and that's a bigger show than the NBA Finals.
I'm just going by the fact, Sundays are always in football day.
Yes.
Okay. They had a bunch of Saturday games last year, too. Granted, you're right. It was after college football was done, but I just think this is the beginning of their encroachment. They've already decided Thursday night football against all of the headwinds. They're like, nah, we are making this a thing. It's like Fetch and Mean Girls. They're just obsessed with making it a thing.
It's completely unsafe. We're gonna play. You played Sunday. You're playing Thursday again.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Yeah.
It's completely unsafe. The games are always garbage.
They're terrible.
The whole world tunes in.
Yeah.
It's the biggest deal in the world. I was so excited last night. I was like, hell yeah, we're watching. And it was an actually good game. It was two good teams, but week 8, where it's the Browns versus the other Browns.
But you know what's going to happen is in a couple years they're going to sell Tuesday night football to Hulu.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then suddenly it's going to be another day.
I was just thinking about this. The NHL keeps wanting to expand, and their thing is we have 32 teams now, but only 26 of them are in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have enough of a foothold in the US market. So we're going to build up to the size of the other leagues because half of the teams and all the teams in Canada don't really count.
For national TV deals is what you're saying.
For TV deals and all that stuff.
Fair point.
It's crazy to me. The NFL hasn't expanded in forever.
Yeah.
What was it? The Browns and the Texans. That was 2000, 2002.
If I had to come up with a reason, I think they will at some point, I'm sure. But if I had to come up with a reason as to why, I think it probably is that just they don't have to. The NHL, when the owners want an infusion of money, they go to expansion because they're going to get the big expansion fees. The NFL is just pumping out money. So they don't need to. And
it's a national product.
There's probably a concern on the part of some of the owners will that make our franchises not as valuable because there's more and it'd be easier to buy a team?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I do agree it is odd.
It's weird.
When you're watching the NHL in particular expanding every 3 or 4 years, that the biggest league in the country
NBA is probably going to expand soon. They're already talking. That's one of the reasons Seattle's no, we need to compete,
right?
Because we're going to be in competition.
Well, they were basically
soon.
Promised it.
Yeah, they were. When they took the Supersonics away, there was a reason they were you keep everything.
Yeah,
you keep the team history. We're coming back
eventually. Yeah, it's too big of a market.
So I just find it weird. It's the NHL's at 32. And they're a fake league. And the NFL is bigger than the U.S. government. And it's more successful by leaps and bounds. And it's we're good at 32.
Yeah.
Why aren't there 50? Every state has a team. I don't know. It's just weird.
If I had to, this is just me being a little hot takey. I have to think if the NFL expands, if they do more teams, it's going to be international.
That would be
they're gonna because they've been wanting to do it for so long. They've been wanting to throw a team in Mexico. They've been wanting to throw a team in England. I feel like that they're going to try. At some point, they're going to try it.
The one problem is, and like we've run into this in hockey, and I think like it's actually made hockey better. Like the reason all of a sudden, Connor McDavid's awesome. But like the reason we're seeing dudes put up 150 points all of a sudden is because like,
talent got diluted a little bit.
The talent's diluted and the stars really stand out now. Like that's good. But in the NFL, it's so one guy dependent, quarterback dependent. That like,
well, we're seeing
there's already not 32.
Yes, we're seeing it now.
Like 12.
We've actually had this conversation off air that quarterback play in the NFL is so much worse today than it was 20 years ago. In that there are 15 quarterbacks that are legitimately good, and then there's a bunch of crap.
If you don't have one of like 12 guys, your season doesn't matter. Yeah. Like you're a fake team. Yeah. All right. I know you're all here for hockey. We're going to get into some hockey, but honestly, we're excited about the Eagles kicking off tonight, even though it's in Brazil. We're excited about it. But it's time for the hockey. We're getting back to the top 20 prospects list. We knocked out the defensemen and goalies on Wednesday. There were 7 of them. We started yesterday the forwards on the list. We got through the guys further down the list, the under the radar guys. Now we're moving to the big
We
got through 9 of the 13, and there's varying degrees of excitement about those guys. But these final 4, we expect them to play for the Philadelphia Flyers sooner than later.
I would agree.
And in hopefully
Barkey might have a little bit longer range.
We're going to talk about
Barkey.
We're going to talk about that. But first, we're going to lead it off with the 6th ranked prospect according to Charlie and Alex Appleyard's list, Samu Tuomaala. Started out the season with the Phantoms really well. 35 points in like his first 41 games. Yeah. And then
tailed off.
Really tailed off. Yeah. Seems like he might have got banged up, hit a wall, whatever it might have been. Only 8 points in the final 28 games for Samu, a guy who got a pretty long look in camp last year and thought there was an outside chance of him potentially making the team. He's still only 21 years old. In all likelihood, will at least be starting the year with the Phantoms. Charlie, what did you find interesting from your conversation with Brent Flair about Samu Tuomaala?
Well, I think it's worth turning the clock back a little bit with Tuomaala, just to set the stage.
Let's turn the clocks back a year.
yes, Dark Knight reference, love it. It's worth remembering that this time last year, because we kind of, you even mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, just this idea of he almost made the team out of camp last year. He stayed real late, and that is true. He had a great training camp. He had a really good development camp, I felt like, not this past summer, but the summer before. And he carried that into a really strong rookie camp and then a really strong training camp to the point where he made an impression on John Tortorella. But it's worth remembering that at this time last year, no one was high on Samu Tuomaala because he was coming off really 2 consecutive seasons where he did not at all live up to the draft pedigree that made him their top pick in the 2021 draft. Because if you remember, they traded away the first-round pick for Rasmus Ristolainen, and truly a fantastic trade. He was their first pick of that draft, so they took a big swing on a guy with offensive skill who was a really, really good skater. The first year after his draft year, he stays over in Lehigh for a little bit, doesn't really play much. He wanted to stay. The team was like, we put you in some games, you've been in practices, you're just not physically ready to handle AHL hockey yet. So they send him back. He has a weird year, doesn't really find a spot, ends up finding a spot with Ukarit, which was coached by Olli Jokinen. And I remember in the summer of 2022, the big talk was, this is great. He's going to be coached by a really good former NHL player. It seems like he's found a fit. This is going to be the year he breaks out. And it just didn't work. He was real bad for them, didn't find a spot. He ends up by the end of the season going back to Mestis, which is essentially the second tier league in Finland. It's basically the AHL of Finland.
Yeah, Liga is the top league, yes. And Mestis is like the AHL.
Yes.
Okay.
So he ends up going back there. It was apparently just a disaster of a season for him. I mean, we're talking about a guy in his draft +2 season, a second-round pick, guy who went in the first half of the second round, I believe. I think that was his pick, around the first half. And he's still toiling away at age 20 in the AHL of Finland. That's really concerning. And
in his Liga games, did nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 0 points in 14 games in 22-23. That's bad.
Everything that I heard about Tuomaala that season was that he had completely lost his way, that his game had fallen off a cliff. But even beyond that, mentally, the kid was a wreck. Like, Brent Flair told me in a past interview that basically, like, this kid, one time Flair went over that season, he went over to see him play in the Finnish league, and basically said, like, the kid was like tearing. He was tearing up. Like, he was just like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I used to be great, now I'm not. I don't know what happened. I can't figure it out. And he was just a wreck. And what happens at the end of that season is they make the decision, okay, you're going to come over to North America. It's like, okay, we're done with this. We're done with this European crap. You're coming over to North America. You're going to be under our watchful eye, and we're going to try to help you figure this shit out. I remember in development camp that summer, I watched him, and the thing that jumped out at me, so this would have been the summer of 2023. The thing that jumped out at me was the past times I had seen him, he could always skate. He had some skill. You could see him with his skill with the puck, but he was always on the perimeter. He was just skating around the outside, hoping things were going to open up, whatever. The guy in that development camp was playing like a fourth liner. And it wasn't that he lost the skill. It was that he was battles. He was battling in the corners. He was forechecking like crazy. He was attacking the net. He was playing like a Darryl Powell type, except he had a lot more skill than Darryl Powell, because Darryl Powell was a guy who basically just made himself into an NHL player on hard work and speed.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw my body around.
Yeah, exactly. Even though I'm not that big, I don't care. And he made himself into an NHL player. That's what Samu Tuomaala looked like at that development camp, and that caught my eye. I'm like, interesting. Maybe he's changing his style a little bit. And then he does the exact same shit at training camp and nearly made the team. I don't think that was ever a realistic consideration, but he made them at least think about it.
We talked yesterday. John Tortorella is very much like a lot of us. He's a shiny new toy guy.
Absolutely.
He has seen what most of these guys can do for a couple of years now, and he's like, well, that's new. I'd like that.
I like that.
That's fun.
That's pretty
and
cool.
It's like, buddy, the one thing we have is right wingers. Like, there's literally, we can only dress so many guys.
Yeah.
There's just literally not quite a spot for him yet. But the thing I liked, the thing I pulled out of your article from your conversation with Flair that I really like to hear, because I remember you telling me, like Brent Flair told me this kid's basically crying, doesn't know what has happened to his game. Yeah. And this was the quote I pulled out of your story with Flair from, just a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a great year for him, just even socially. He was a quiet kid. Now he's cracking jokes. He walks and he's strutting around down there. He's a different person as far as confidence. I don't know what happened to the second post-draft year. You talked to him and you were just pumping his tires all the time just to get some life going in him, because in his draft year, he was an energetic guy flying around, shooting the puck through the net, and then he had his struggles both on and off the ice. And that's what it's like. Yeah. He clearly had some sort of crisis of confidence. Yeah. And no matter how good you are, like, if you don't think it, you won't be. Yeah. That's sports, man. That's elite athletes. And to hear that he has it back, that's exciting. Now we need to know what the hell happened in the second part of the season last year. Why just stop scoring? Maybe he was banged up. Maybe he hit a wall.
I think it was a little both.
You look at his games played from the previous couple of years.
That to me is the big thing.
Like, yeah, the American League, first of all, it's insane. It's much more physical, I would expect, than Finland. And he just wasn't playing a ton. Like, you look at the games played, it's like, oh, yeah, like 14 in Liga, 20-some in Mest. Like, he hasn't played a full season in a couple of years because of the huge dip in his play and just trying to find a spot for him where it worked. Yeah. Now he's playing a full season, and it would make sense that at 20, 21 years old, there's a rookie wall. It's a real thing.
I really do think he wore down. And everything I had heard in the second half was that he was a bit banged up. It wasn't just that he got exhausted. He was dealing with, not injuries that were going to keep him out, but injuries that slowed him down.
Stuff you have to learn to play through. That's part of the process.
And Flair noted as well in this interview, he was like, look, that was part of it. Part of it was the wall, which is what you mentioned about the fact that really dating back, again, like, I don't think we can overstate how much the pandemic hurts a lot of these guys' development, in that
2020 draft pick.
You had the 2019-2020 season gets halted, so you don't finish that. It's still close to a full season, but not a full season. 2020, 2021 was weird as hell for everybody. Some of the leagues didn't even play.
Yeah.
And the ones that did had tons of restrictions and they weren't playing full seasons. So those 2 seasons were already weird. Then the Draft Plus 2 season of his, he's bouncing around from team to team. He ends up back in the Finnish AHL. He's having a nervous breakdown in terms of a crisis of confidence. Like, this was his first year where he was playing 60-plus games with the same team in the grind. And I do think he wore down a bit. But the other thing that Flair pointed out was he had this great offensive start. He becomes the go-to guy on the Phantoms. Suddenly, and like, yeah, it's not like AHL teams have massive scouting departments and huge coaching staffs, but they can look at a score sheet and they can see, yo, this kid seems like their top scorer.
He's scoring a point a game right now.
Maybe we should game plan to shut him down. And I do think that was the first time probably in years that any team had gone into a game worried about Samu Tuomaala. And I just think there was probably an adjustment period of, they're sending their best defenseman out to check me on every shift. This is new.
And it's not as if the Phantoms are loaded with firepower.
No, they're not.
Like, yeah, there's some AHL regulars down there that kind of help boost things. Bobby Brink got a little stint down there for a bit where he scored a ton because he's like an NHL player. Yeah. But like they don't have a ton of offense down there. Yeah, it makes it like, he's got 35 points in 40 games. We should probably focus on him.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
He's the only one who can score on the whole team. Maybe if we take him and Emil Andre out, we have a real good chance of not giving up any goals.
Yeah.
And that's maybe a part of it too. And that's another thing. Yeah, you have to learn to battle through. You're going to have tough matchups sometimes. And in the NHL, like, how good are those guys? The guys being sent out to shut you down, yeah, maybe it's your shutdown defenseman in the AHL, but how good is he really?
Right.
You need to beat him. If you're going to be an NHL regular, you're going to be up against, not the other team's top line probably, Samu Tuomaala, but the third pair is pretty good too.
That's the thing. The guys the guys who they're sending out to shut you down in the AHL, a lot of them are going to be third pair defensemen in the NHL.
Like, are they better than Zamula and Risto? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not.
And that's an NHL third pair right there, and not an especially great one.
Yeah,
like
just okay.
They're fine.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Probably league average. Yeah. But like, that's just going to be part of this growing process. So, do you think? Let's table injuries, because I know you don't like to, because obviously, if 3 right wings get hurt in camp, Samu Tuomaala is probably making the team.
Yeah.
But let's say Bobby Brink, Travis Konechny, all these guys, and all the right wingers we have playing the left side too, they get through camp relatively healthy. Tuomaala, probably another full year in the AHL.
I wouldn't quite go so far as say another full year, but I do think that he has to really blow the doors off in camp. Basically have last year's camp, but maybe even a bit better to have a real shot. I think the Flyers personally would prefer him to go back down to the AHL to show that the second half of last season was just him hitting the wall. It wasn't that he got figured out and now he can't adjust. They want to make sure of that. And I think there is still in the organization with Tuomaala, they watched what happened to him after his draft year. And there's a feeling of, maybe just slow play him a little bit, because they saw him fall apart. And I don't think they think negatively of him for it. Like, look,
it's something they have to.
It's something they have to account for. And it's like, he's just finally getting comfortable again.
Yeah.
He's comfortable in his surroundings. He's friends with his teammates. His game's trending upwards. Like, we finally got him back on track. Do we really want to immediately throw him back into the deep end of the pool? Or do we want to let him, kick ass for a while in the 6-7 foot range before we send him out into the 12-foot range?
And that's something when you hear them talk a lot about, we like to see guys dominate at a level before graduating them. I feel like Tuomaala is the perfect example of who they're talking about.
Right.
Like, this is a guy who, we just got him back on track.
Exactly.
And it's not as if he's going to graduate to the NHL. Like, he comes up, say he plays 6 games, doesn't score. It's John Tortorella. He's not
exactly a patient man.
Yeah, like, I don't know if he's
not a patient man.
Put your arm around you, like, all right, kid, get him next time. I don't know if that's how he's going to deal with that. And then if he gets sent back down, what do you do? It's just, you have to treat each player as an individual. Maybe you treat him a little bit of, let's, like you said, slow play it.
Yeah, slow play a little bit.
If it takes him 6 months longer, it'll be better in the long run for us.
I think that is their preference. What I will say about Tuomaala, and to be clear, I don't expect him to make the team out of camp. The roster looks pretty full. I think he really would have to blow the doors off. It would basically involve him, I think, pushing Brink to healthy scratch roll.
Yes.
I think that would basically be what it would have to be, because Brink's no longer waiver exempt, so it's not like you can send him down. They would have to basically push Brink into healthy scratch roll, because if they waive Brink, he's getting claimed. Somebody's going to be interested enough to pick him up. They're not going to do that. What I will say about Tuomaala is that one of the reasons why I'm excited about him as a prospect, one of the reasons why I think me and Alex are more excited about Tuomaala than a lot of the national prospect people, because like EP Rinkside put out their ranking of the Flyers. They ranked them with the 6th best prospect pool in the league.
6 it came up. I've only seen it up to 7.
Number
I didn't
6.
see that they came out at 6. Okay.
Corey Proman did his pipeline rankings. Scott Wheeler did his earlier in the summer as well. And like, I don't get the sense anybody is quite as high on Tuomaala as Alex and I are, and I think the Flyers. But part of the reason for that is I watched Tuomaala play, especially given the stylistic changes the Flyers made last season. And I'm like, Tuomaala fits what the Flyers are doing now under John Tortorella, the transition speed game, so well. Fits it like a glove. Like, it is, I can totally understand why John Tortorella watched him in camp last year and was like, I want this dude, because this dude plays what I want this team to play. And I am not ruling out the possibility that John Tortorella won't at the end of camp be banging the table and saying, you know what? Look, Brink's got skill. This kid can skate. Brink is not the greatest skater. Tuomaala can freaking skate. He can stretch defenses. He can forecheck. He can do the things I want us to be doing more than Brink can, even if Brink maybe has more puck skills. I could see it being a debate if Tuomaala has the same kind of camp he had last year. I think John Tortorella knows that Samu Tuomaala, in theory, stylistically, really fits what he wants the Flyers to do.
All right, we next up, we're going to get to Denver Barkey. But before that, man, we started the show talking about how we're excited about football season kicking off. You know, there was a game just last night to start that regular season. You know what that means? It's fall allergy season. That's right. And if you're a fall allergy sufferer like I am, you need to check out your local Rite Aid, because fall allergies can begin as early as August and last into November. September 6th. Allergy season absolutely here. We know about the causes, the ragweed, the mold, dust mites, pet dander, all that stuff. Well, there's some preventative steps you can take to maybe alleviate some of your allergy symptoms. First and foremost, sign up for Rite Aid Rewards emails at riteaid.com/rewards and receive emails when email pollen alerts for your area. When pollen counts are high, maybe keep those windows closed. Keep running that AC. I know it's a little nice outside. Maybe you want to crack the windows, but is it worth it if you can't breathe? And if you're going to be outside, maybe you're doing some gardening, whatever it might be, putting up your fall decorations, try wearing a mask and some gloves out there. Try to get away from some of that pollen, keep it off you. And when you do get it on you, shower frequently. Just good advice all around. And if that's not enough, these preventative measures not quite enough to kill some of your symptoms, check out the over-the-counter options available at your local Rite Aid, like a nasal rinse to help flush out your nasal passages. They also carry antihistamines, like Rite Aid brand Zyrtec and Rite Aid brand Claritin. You can get either the name brand or the Rite Aid brand. Why not save a couple of bucks? What was that?
Nothing.
Okay. It was okay. And 1 to 2 weeks before pollen allergies are expected to be high, check out nasal corticosteroids like Flonase and Nasacort, also available in Rite Aid brand. Still not enough relief, or you still have questions? Ask a Rite Aid pharmacist if a different type of allergy medication, like a decongestant, might be necessary. And you can always ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for recommendations on ways to get relief during allergy season. And I left my Shady Rays out in the green room, but let's just pretend I'm wearing them for this Shady Rays
It's a cloudy day.
advertisement.
It's a cloudy day.
It was a bit of a cloudy day. I wear sunglasses every day. I wear my Shady Rays every single day. You got to get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. And they have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of Shady Rays is backed by lost or broken replacements. And if you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. And exclusively for our listeners, this is the part you need to listen to. Shady Rays is giving out their best deal this season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. All right. Denver Barkey.
Denver Barkey.
Obviously, we know the deal with Denver Barkey. The quote I pulled from your story about Denver Barkey straight from Brent Flair. There's a big difference, just asking about, like, you know, what he needs to do, just put on weight, get stronger, etc. There's a big difference between putting on weight and getting stronger. I think he needs to get stronger. I think he's self-aware. I do think that with his body type, there's a certain weight level where you can't get too much heavier. You start slowing down and it's ineffective. It's not a quick process for a guy like that, but I think he understands where he needs to get to. I think if he's in this 170, 175 pound area, and when he's a pro, I think he'll be fine. But it's the leg strength and getting the upper body to a point where he can compete against men and not losing his speed and quickness and agility. He is listed both on Elite Prospects and the London Knights website at 154 pounds.
Yeah, I believe that's what the Flyers listed him at development camp.
We're talking
20 pounds.
15 20 pounds. Yeah. We all know about the size strength stuff. You look at him and go, oh, yeah, he's a little kid. He needs to get bigger.
The big thing, too, is he looks like a kid. He has a baby face.
He needs to physically develop.
Yeah.
We all know about that. That's the book on Barkey. We've been talking about it since he was drafted. And like I said, listed at 154, we know it. But what does a guy who put up one of the 5 100-point seasons in the OHL have to do other than that to be considered a high-level prospect? Because he has been really freaking good.
Yeah.
He was at a point a game the year they drafted him. He almost doubles his production, jumping to 102 points last year. There was 5 guys who scored 100 points in the OHL. He was one of them. We know he needs to get bigger. What else is there?
Well, the real answer to this question is grow 4 inches. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
but that is the answer.
He's also 5'9".
Yeah,
is the thing.
That is the answer. He's 5'9", and the big concern that people have about him is the size. It's not. This isn't a 5'11" guy, like a 5'11", 170 guy who you're like, well, he's undersized. He's not that big. Denver Barkey is tiny, and I, generally speaking, am a guy who thinks that size is overblown in terms of prospect evaluation and whatnot. But when you're this tiny, it does start to matter. These guys, sometimes it happens. I mean, like Johnny Gaudreau, I know we're going to bring him up all the time, and obviously rest in peace, but he's an example of an outlier. Those guys don't usually pan out, and when they pan out, they're not usually that freaking good.
There's a reason he went in the 4th round, because it was like, I don't know, man. Yeah, skill's insane, but what if he gets hit?
Yeah.
It's like, well,
but he doesn't.
He was so good.
He doesn't.
Guess what? And I guess that's the question. Barkey is a 3rd round pick, probably based a little bit on size. And it's not like not insane production his draft year, but I think it was like 59 points in 61 games.
It was close to a
point a game.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Is he that skilled that, yeah, he needs to put on the weight, get bigger, all that. He needs to grow into being a man. That's just what you need to do at that age. But he's not going to be he's going to be 5'9", 170. You know, that's what he's 175, hopefully.
Yeah.
Is he good enough to get by? Is his skill that high?
So I say this as someone who is very high on Denver Barkey. I think he's going to be an NHL player, and I think he's going to be a quite popular one in this town. I don't see high-end skill. I see skill. This is a guy who can score, who can make plays with the puck, but I don't see super high-end skill. He's the kind of guy where at development camp, he didn't pop until the scrimmages. Whereas guys like Luchanko and even guys like Alex Bump, they popped in drills because you can see
they do one or two things great.
You can see the high-end puck skills. Whereas Barkey, a lot of what makes him as good as he is, and I go back to that great quote in the EP Rinkside scouting report of him last year in their big draft guide, which was, dog. But Barkey doesn't have that dog in him. Dog's got that Barkey in him.
That's so good.
He is relentless, and he is the kind of guy that is always going to look better in game situations versus drills because you put him in a competitive atmosphere where there's a puck and there's two guys in front of him. He's got to get through. Who cares about the size? He's going to find a way.
Flair must have used the word competitive when describing him like 4 or 5 times
because he is
in like 2
That's
paragraphs.
his big strong point.
Like he is, and he's like, listen, yeah, he's got the playmaking. He can shoot a little and needs to work on it. Like, but he is just so competitive. We're not worried. Like, yeah, he had a 100-point season, and now it's okay. He's probably going back, and like you worry about complacency sometimes with guys in that situation.
Yeah, because it's not like
with him though.
Like last year, he took a 40-point jump.
Yeah,
it's not reasonable to expect he's going to score 140 points.
150 points.
Yeah, like that's not going to happen.
Yeah, but he does have he felt snubbed by Team Canada.
Yeah, he did.
Like,
he
and
very
like
much
now
did.
Making World Juniors is very much a goal for him.
Yeah,
he very much like that's all right. So that there are things motivating him internally.
Yes,
and because he's just naturally competitive, he was like in his situation. Yeah, I worry about guys maybe getting complacent. Him though, I don't. That's also very like he's going to take another step.
Yeah,
can it be 40 points? Probably not.
Probably not.
I bet you he's even better.
You would hope. He's probably going to play in fewer games because he's going to be gone for World Juniors. So he's going to play in fewer games. So he might have fewer points, raw totals, than he did last year. But I would suspect his point per game rate will go up because I think he's going to develop. I just think with Barkey, and I don't know what his ceiling is. I just think he's the kind of guy where regardless of what role he plays, I think he's a guy you're going to be excited he's on your team. He's going to do enough things.
He's going to do stuff.
Whether he's a fourth liner or a second liner, you're going to be happy he's on your team.
I've made the Scott Laughton comparison, not because I think they're similar players, but I do think they could play a similar role in that utility. Like, I don't
think Barkey can play center, but I see where you're going with
like different spots in the lineup. And
he's a great penalty killer. Barkey's a power kill guy. He scores a ton of penalty kill points.
We will think of him the way I have thought of Scott Laughton over the last few years, where my opinion really changed on him, where it was, I don't know where I want to play you, but I know you have a spot on my team. And that's kind of what Denver Barkey, he's giving those vibes.
I just think he plays such a relentless style, and he's so competitive out there. He battles. He finds ways to score points that other guys would not because he's the most creative guy, but just because he just finds a way to get the puck to somebody because he's going to put in that extra little bit of effort that most guys either can't or just won't. And do I think that there is a world where he could become a second liner? Sure. It's not my expectation for him, but I'm not ruling out that possibility in his, range of outcomes because he's a guy who just seems to get the most out of everything he has. That said, there's a world where he goes pro and it turns out that he is just too small and he just can't get out of the AHL because he's just too freaking small. And I hope that's not the case. I hope he doesn't hit that wall, but with guys of his size, you can't rule out that possibility entirely, which is why he's a bit more of a boom bust kind of prospect than a Luchanko, who, look, worst case scenario, he's McLeod, the guy who they traded to Buffalo for like a top 10 pick this past summer, who was a key bottom sixer on a team that came one game away from winning a Stanley Cup. Like he's Ryan McLeod. That's worst case scenario for Jett Luchanko. Worst case scenario for Denver Barkey is he hits the AHL and he's just watching everybody whiz by him.
And that's, again, like I think the size stuff can be overrated, but when you're talking about a relentless guy, like he's going to make his living in the corners.
Yeah.
He is going to kill penalties.
Yeah.
This is physically taxing work.
It is.
He's not going to be able to avoid contact. Like that's not his game. If he just is too small, like I know, like, well, listen, Risto's huge. He gets hurt all the time. But if you're 160 pounds and getting bounced around by dudes who are 210, like you're going to get hurt. That's just the way it is.
I mean, the one guy, and this, like, hopefully Barkey doesn't run into the other issues that this guy ran into. And I'm not saying it's a one-to-one apples-to-apples comparison because, number one, Barkey has played center. I don't think he's going to be a center at the pro level. Number two, while this guy wasn't huge, he was bigger than Barkey. But, like, there's some Mike Richards to Barkey's game.
I was just going to say, I was going to make it next Mike Richards.
There's some Mike Richards to Barkey's game. And Richards did break down. He did. Now, granted, I think part of that was that he was struggling with addiction. I think that didn't hurt his body. But he did break down earlier than you want a guy to who you think is going to be a core player. Barkey
Based
has a little...
on that style of play.
You can. Yeah. Barkey has a little bit of Richards in him. He does.
I was going to make a next Mike Richards joke because we always have to have a next Mike Richards, and I suppose it could be Denver Barkey. you just always have to have a next Mike Richards.
Always.
It's just what is demanded of all of us. You mentioned Jett Luchanko. Well, he came in at number two on the prospect list. This past summer's 13th overall pick, Jett Luchanko. Charlie, I'm obviously willing, like, yeah, man, the Flyers believe in him. I'm going to give him a shot. I would have preferred Zeev Buium, but Buium. Because I've heard of him, and Jett was like, he's fast and his name's Jett. Cool.
It's cool.
I like it. And that was the extent of my scouting report on Jett Luchanko,
right? Because
it didn't seem as if he was mocked in the area the Flyers would be drafting. It looked like it was going to be between their 2 first-round picks.
He was in the very next tier. He would have been a guy who I would have very much zeroed in on had the Flyers made the playoffs and lost in round 1. He would have very much been that. Okay. That was the range I expected Luchanko to go, and I think that was the range most NHL teams expected Luchanko to go. But really, what it boiled down to, I think, for the Flyers was with the way the first round shook out. There were 3 outcomes. There were 3 plausible guys they could have taken. Obviously, they traded down, so they traded out of the Buium spot. But the 3 guys I think they were probably looking at were Buium, who was probably the consensus top guy on the board, Konsta Helenius, and Jett Luchanko. For whatever reason, now whether it was they didn't want to take another smallish defenseman, whether it was their scouts just didn't particularly like Buium's upside. I think he's just going to top out as a solid top 4 defenseman, and they don't think he has top pair upside like I did, or if there was a consideration about his agent, that it was Kurt Overhart. I don't know if it was a combination of all of them, if it was one thing driving it. I'm not sure. What I know is that they clearly were not high enough on Zeev Buium to take him because they traded out of the pick. They got Spencer Gill, by the result of trading down, but he was staring right at him. He was the guy if you're taking the chalk pick, and they did. So they trade out of that pick. Then it's no longer Buium. Then it's Helenius. You're like, Helenius is going to be the pick. He's the final guy in that tier. He's still going to be available at 13. Okay. They clearly just wanted a center. They didn't want a defenseman. What I will say about Luchanko, and I ranked Helenius over Luchanko in my pre-draft rankings, but my concern about Helenius always was I don't know what his upside is. I think he probably tops out as a really good second-line center. He's Anton Lundell. Luchanko, I will say, I think has higher plausible upside than Helenius because I think Luchanko's speed, his work around the net, I think that there is a world where Luchanko hits and could be a 1C. I don't think it is the scenario we should be expecting. I don't think that is the outcome that is the most likely. But I think there is a greater chance that Jett Luchanko is a true top-of-the-lineup guy than Konsta Helenius. So I think that's probably where their head was at. It was like, Helenius, good player, but we need to take some big swings. And if we're not going to take the Buium swing, if for whatever reason we decided he's not our guy, and it comes down to these 2 centers, let's take the center with the higher plausible upside.
It's very funny. Like we've said like, okay, yeah, man, we need to take some risks. We need to take some chances. It can't just be, oh yeah, well, we think he is going to play in the NHL. So boom, if he's just a 2C, like whatever. And then they do that. We're like, yeah, but not that one.
Not that one.
We like the other guy though.
I think if they were, honestly, I think if their pick was 13 and Bouillon was gone, there was no possibility of getting Bouillon, I think people would have came around on the pick quicker because it would have been much easier to sell. Like, yeah, they had a choice between two centers. You might say they reached on Luchanko, but they reached on him because they think he has a higher upside than Hellenius. I think that would have been easier to sell than, there's this defenseman who helped his team win the national championship as a freshman, scored a ton of points, and can do everything. And the Flyers were like, now we're good.
Yeah.
That, I think, was the tough part for a lot of people to swallow. It's still a tough thing for me to swallow. Zeke Bouillon was my third-ranked prospect in the entire draft. It was Celebrini, it was Demidov, and then it was Bouillon. So I really wanted him. So if I was purely looking at this from a fan perspective, I would still be like, how the hell did they not take Zeke Bouillon? That was stupid. So I get why fans are still dealing with that. But for whatever reason, they're not as high on Bouillon as I am, and as a lot of people in the public sphere were. Not high enough to take him at 12. And they really like Jett Luchanko's upside.
Jett Luchanko and like the speed obviously pops. You said you saw some things at Dev Camp where you're like, oh, okay. Like even just in drills. The one thing I do remember hearing from Dev Camp was just like the puck protection, accepting passes, like it sounded almost like he might have stone hands. Was that overblown?
I think it's overblown.
Okay.
What I will say...
that was concerning.
What I will say about Luchanko is the only time he really shows off great hands, at least to this point, is when he's around the net. That's when, because he does have dangles, he has moves to fool goalies around the net, and he showed them off at development camp. It's just that the passing creativity through the neutral zone, the passing creativity even in the offensive zone on the cycle, I don't see it yet. There were times, I remember when I watched tape of his junior games, there were times when he would try high difficulty passes. A lot of times they don't hit, and you worry a bit about the creativity. The Flyers think it's there, and they think that part of it is Guelph ain't very good. And they think that if he was playing with higher skilled players, that the creativity would show more. Maybe they're right. That is a risk they're taking, but they see something in this guy. They think that this is a guy where if he was on a better team, he would have scored 90, 95 points, and everybody would be like, oh man, this guy has high-end offensive skill. Instead, he's on a team that wasn't very good. He had to do everything himself. And not only did that lower his point totals, they think, it also made his tape not as impressive. Like, I think it was Flair said in the interview, he basically said, the games I watched in person, he could have scored 10 points.
Yeah.
And he just didn't have help. So I think that is a lot of what they're thinking is that maybe it'll never happen in Guelph. Maybe he's never going to have the help there. But eventually he's going to have help, whether it's in the AHL level or in the NHL level. He's going to play with higher skilled players. And when we give him those higher skilled players, he's going to have more offense than a lot of people think he will.
I want to get a little bit more Luchanko in before we have the big reveal of the number one prospect.
I know, you're holding your breath.
I wonder who it could possibly be. But before we finish up the Luchanko stuff, I want to tell you about our friends at Empire Today. That's right. 1-800-588-2300 Empire. With Empire Today, you get shop-at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today is the best place to get new flooring, so they've got copycats. But those copycats can never beat Empire Today on quality, service, and speed. So they just advertise low-quality products that Empire simply won't carry. Empire Today won't promise the lowest prices because anyone who does that is just putting flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in their own. The Empire philosophy is to help you find what you need, not overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. What Empire leaves out of their selection is just as important as what they put in. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find the perfect styles. And the virtual floor designer is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space. It's easy. All you have to do is snap a picture and instantly see how new floors will look in your room. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details. And while we're here, let me tell you, oh man, we keep talking. It's fall, it's football season, hockey around the corner. That means it's tailgate season. And what do you need for the perfect tailgate? You need a Rugged Road cooler. Rugged Road is dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. And their products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring they perform in the toughest conditions. Whether you're on land or water, Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure. Maybe you're out on the boat, having a little fun. Cooler pops off. It happens, man. You're a little choppy out there. Maybe the cooler goes flying. Well, guess what? They're floatable. One of the most unique features of Rugged Road coolers is their ability to always float upright so you never lose a drink, and their lightweight design. Unlike other heavy-duty coolers, Rugged Road coolers are incredibly light, making them easy to transport on any trip without compromising on performance. What kind of performance are we talking about? Rugged Road coolers are guaranteed to keep their contents cool for up to 7 days, and oftentimes much longer than that. They're perfect for a variety of outdoor activities, from fishing and tubing to camping and tailgating. These coolers are designed to meet the needs of every outdoor or sports enthusiast. So gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers. Reliable, durable, and built to be used, Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use code PHLY for 10% off. All right, Chuck.
I was bummed. I wanted to use my Rugged Road cooler this weekend. Well, because originally me and my friends were planning on Saturday, tomorrow, to go out kayaking at Marsh Creek. Really enjoy kayaking. It's fun, chill activity. You know, you have some beers, play some music, just hang out. But the weather is like iffy, and the last thing I want to do is be out on a lake with the possibility of rain and thunder and lightning. Probably not the safest thing in the world. So because of that, it'll probably end up being gorgeous and sunny, and we'll be like, well, this stinks. But was looking forward to using my Rugged Road cooler out there.
The one thing I want to know about what you think about Luchanko is, listen, was he a top 5 pick? No, we expect those guys to join the NHL pretty quickly. We know he's young. He just turned 18 like last week. But he isn't exactly small. Okay, he's a little speedster. No, he's 5'11", almost 190. That's like normal NHL size.
Yeah, he's maybe like a touch undersized, but not small.
It's not a huge league anymore. No. Like, it's not the 6'3", 230 league anymore. Those guys are few and far between.
Unicorns. That's why Caden Lidstrom was everyone wanted him.
Yeah. What do you think his timeline is? Like, at Guelph, he doesn't have a ton of help. I don't know how much better he can get. Like, yeah, in your interview, Flair's like, listen, we look at it like he's going to be the go-to guy. He's going to play in every situation, and we think that's good. But at a certain point, if they just don't have a lot of help for him, and he just had, 20 goals, 74 points in 68 games, how much more is there for him to do at that level before turning pro?
It's a good question.
And he's not AHL eligible forever.
No.
is a big thing as well.
He's not. He's got 2 more years before he can turn pro. EP Rinkside did an interesting video a few weeks ago, basically making the case that they think Luchanko could make the team this year and play in the 9-game audition. I don't get the sense that's in the Flyers' plans. I don't think they want to rush this guy. I don't think they feel they have to rush this guy. But it's reasonable to point out that for an 18-year-old who is young, he just turned 18. He was young for his draft year.
Yes.
He is very physically fit. That he is a guy where he is built and he puts his time in the gym. This is not a guy that is going to have to spend. I mean, he's going to need to get stronger in certain areas to be sure.
Everyone does,
especially when you're that young. But this is not a guy where I think if you tossed him in the NHL, he would get physically dominated. I think he would hold his own physically because he is strong already.
He was the one of those guys that talked about building a gym in his garage during the he didn't use his pandemic time to watch Tiger King. He was building a gym in his garage and got really into physical fitness. Yeah. And if you're hoping for some internally motivated guys, seems like a characteristic to like about him.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that's the big thing is, and I think he will get stronger. I think once you get him on an NHL weight program and whatnot, there will be gains that can be made. I don't think he's topped out, but I think the big thing that speaks to is the work ethic.
Yeah.
That's the big positive. That is, there's a lot of kids who, they might think they work hard, and in their mind they work hard, but they're not working hard at you're going to make the NHL level yet. They have to be pushed to get there. It seems like Luchanko's already working at an NHL level of commitment, which is a good sign because number one, it's like, okay, well, we don't need to teach that to him. Number two, all right, if he's already working at an NHL level of commitment, what if you push him a little more? Then what's going to happen?
and that's while I find it probably a little far-fetched for him to get the 9-game tryout. He just turned 18. There's a lot of guys ahead of him on the depth chart, you would think. You would think. He's a center. The coach hates the best offensive center, Morgan Frost. The best overall center, hopefully, Sean Couturier. I don't know.
Yeah,
no idea what the hell he is.
We're hoping.
Like we're really crossing our fingers on this one, After that, Ryan Poehling, he's the last real center.
Yeah.
Scott Lawton probably going to be a center.
Yeah, he's
Noah
a hybrid.
Cates can play center,
Yeah.
but they're like, no, he's clearly a better winger. There is a center spot up for grabs. Like, it wouldn't be crazy if he was a year older. It wouldn't be crazy to think, oh, Jett could get a look.
I mean, I'm not expecting him to make this team to get the audition.
I don't think so.
I probably will when I do my pre-camp breakdown. I will probably include him in the hey, if literally everything breaks right, maybe. I'm not going to say he has no chance. It's highly unlikely, but I'm not going to have him in the list of guys where there's literally zero chance they are making this team. He's not going to be in that part of the list. He'll be in the, I mean, it would take a miracle, but, can't completely say it's 0.0%.
At no point did I ever think Emil Andre was making this team.
Yeah, I thought he had a shot. I thought he was probably in that tier for me, maybe a little higher. I'd have to go back and look at my lists. But I could see a scenario where he makes the team next year, where he pulls a Konechny. If he takes the leap this year and even without a lot of help, he scores 100 points in the OHL on a crap team and makes Team Canada and impresses in the World Junior Championships. Yeah, he could take the Konechny route. He could end up being a third line center for this team in 2025, 2026. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility if his development keeps going well. That's the kick.
Yeah, I would love to see it, but I don't know. But one thing I did want to ask you before, Michkov is number one. We're going to talk about him. Don't worry. What went into Barkey coming off the 100-point season? What went into ranking Barkey fourth and Luchanko second? Because it looked like you both put him at number 2. Is it just draft pedigree, ceiling, upside?
Yeah, I think I think for me it's ceiling.
We
to have him over Bonk.
We have considerably more information about Barkey, and he looks pretty damn good than we do Luchanko. But it's just ceiling, upside. All right.
Yeah, to me it's ceiling. I'm still not sold on Bonk as a first pair defenseman. I'm not there. I think the Flyers still have hopes he can get there. I still see a rock solid second pair guy. Whereas with Luchanko, there's a world where I could see him if everything breaks right. I could see him as a first line center. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible in a way that I don't think it's possible that Oliver Bonk is 1D. I just don't see that in him in a way that I see a possibility for that to happen with Jett Luchanko.
And now, coming in at number 1, it's Matvei Michkov.
Here we go.
Hopefully making his debut next Friday the 13th at the rookie game. You said weeks ago you expect him to play. Do you still expect him to play in one, if not both, rookie games?
Yes. Well, he's definitely going to play in one. I think it was Kevin Kurz who earlier this week said that he from what he's heard, it looks like he's only going to get in one. Fingers crossed it'll be the Friday game. Really, really hope it's the Friday game.
If it's... That is going to be very disappointing.
It seems unfair if they sit him for the first game, because the first game is the one people care about more.
Yeah.
Because it's the first game. It's the first game, the first unofficial Flyers game after a summer of nothing. To me, it makes sense to play him. If you're going to play him in one of the two, play him in the first.
Big Friday night now in town.
Yeah.
Bring the people in.
Exactly.
Show Alexei Kolosov what he's missing. Maybe he'll be there.
God. Maybe Kolosov
will be suited up. You know what? If
Plot twist.
Michkov doesn't play, but Kolosov does, I will be just as excited for Friday's game. I'll tell you that right now.
Okay.
But then I'm definitely going to Saturday if he doesn't play Friday.
Right,
I'll tell
of course,
you that.
of
Yeah.
course.
All right. Matvei Michkov.
Matvei Michkov.
What are fair expectations for him? Like, we are thinking the world of this guy. He is, I don't want to call him the franchise savior, but he kind of has to be. Like,
And with the way they're building this team.
Looking at this prospect pool, like, yes, elite prospects ranked us at 7 or 6, was it?
6.
Sixth best.
But they do say in the breakdown that once Michkov graduates, they're going to go down. Not to the nether reaches of the list, but they're probably going to drop to at least the late teens, like mid to late teens, I would think.
Pronman in his pipeline ranked him 13th. Yeah. So not exactly top of the line, more middle of the road.
Right.
He has to be that guy. What does that look like this year? Like, can we say, yeah, man, it has to be 60 points? Like, what is, to be on the trajectory we need him on, a fair expectation for year one for a dude who's not yet 20?
We can say whatever we want. And that's one of the thrills of this job, is that we can literally say whatever we want. In my mind, if he scores over 45, 50 points, I think that is a perfectly fine rookie season, and that will not have me worried at all about the potential for him to be a really, really good player in 2-3 years. But obviously, if he comes out and scores point per game or close to it, because I'm not necessarily expecting him to play all 82. Not because I'm like, well, Tortorella is going to scratch for 2 weeks. No, like, I could easily see him getting hurt, like missing a couple weeks due to injury or whatever. But if he's around point per game as a rookie, as excited as people are now, oh, man.
Charlie, you mentioned Tortorella scratching him, and that is the money quote from your conversation with Flair regarding Michkov.
Yes.
This is so good. Mind you, he's going to have to change some things. There, he can cheat, speaking of in the KHL, playing with Sochi. Mm-hmm. Torts knows what he is as a player, so it's not like he's going to have a big string on him, but I'm sure there will be some snaps early that will get our fans upset. But there's certain things, you can't have a 2-minute shift and hang out there on the red line or whatever. There's things that aren't going to fly over here, but he's smart enough to know that too. And that is, I think, especially early in the season for me, more than Michkov's production is the back and forth between Tortorella and the hopeful superstar that carries this team's offense.
Right.
We have said there's a world where these two get along swimmingly because they're both competitive and they know what to expect out of each other, and all either of them cares about is winning. Doesn't matter how many eggs they break along the way. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're the perfect combination for each other.
Maybe.
And John Tortorella, last season, when he changed the offense, did so saying, well, this is what this guy does well.
Mad Russians coming.
So when he gets here, we should do the things that work for him.
And I think it's also worth remembering that it's not like he clashed or held back Artemi Panarin.
Yes.
In Columbus.
So
there is a track record of him coaching guys like Michkov with that kind of skill, and it's not like he, keeps them, chained up.
It's not always the disaster it was with the Sedins, where he's yelling at them to block shots and they're laughing at him. And it lasts 1 year, and it's like, this isn't going to work. He has had success with highly skilled guys in the past. It can work. Do you expect a major blow up at some point, though?
I don't know if I expect a major blow up. I do expect that there will be times where Tortorella gets frustrated with him and disciplines him. Now, whether that's as a healthy scratch or whether that's just like, hey, you're going to be playing with Nick Deslauriers and Garnet Hathaway for a game, or you're not playing in the third period. I'm short of my bench and you ain't one of the guys who's going out there while Ryan Poehling is getting every second shift. And people are going to go nuts. Like, people on Twitter, understandably, and people just generally speaking in the fan base are going to go nuts. And there is an element to this. Like, I don't think it's irrational for people to get angry at those types of things. Like, I had a quote tweet of that quote. I posted that quote on Twitter yesterday. And I had a quote tweet that, like, it's a very fair point. And basically what that person said, and it was in joking form, but there was a kernel of truth to it, it's like, there's going to be some family that saved up all their money to go to one game, and Matvei Michkov's not going to be playing because John Tortorella threw a shit fit.
And thank you to our PHLY diehards. We could not do what we do here without our diehards. So make sure you go to allphly.com. Sign up to be a diehard if you haven't already. Yeah,
but that's a reasonable point because, look, Michkov is the thing that they are using to sell tickets. He is the guy. He is the thing that all of the season ticket reps are. From my understanding, the day it got announced, they sent out a phone call blitz of like, hey, did you see the Michkov news? Why don't you buy season tickets? So it's a fair point that these fans who are buying tickets in no small part to see Michkov, and Tortorella's attempts at discipline and teaching him the right way will run counter to the reasonable expectations of fans who just want to see this kid do cool hockey things.
Let's just do it on the road, John.
Just do it on the road.
Let's just do it on the road.
That's the compromise.
Maybe that's not fair to out-of-town fans, but life ain't fair.
Life ain't fair.
You bought a ticket to see the Flyers. You get what you get. They're not very good. But, yeah, Matvei Michkov is the draw. Maybe let's just do it on the road. I will say, I think we said this earlier in the offseason, I think Torts somewhat has to.
To discipline him a bit?
I think he has to... Maybe not do the like Kevin Hayes, just like treat him poorly all year,
right?
Like, at least in Kevin Hayes' mind, But like after a couple of years of John Tortorella just busting everyone's balls nonstop, this kid comes in. He's gonna be the number one jersey. Like that's gonna be the number one jersey in the Wells Fargo Center this year. Everyone's gonna want their Mishkov stuff. Listen, we're trying to cash in. We have multiple Mishkov shirts. Like we don't have other stuff. It's not like we do have a dry guy, the fly guy. But like it's Michkov, man. Like that's what this thing is. They're gonna like the rest of the locker room. I'm sure they're excited to have the help.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like it sucks never scoring. The power play being so much worse than just the second worst power play. Like, I bet you they're happy to have the help, but it is this 20-year-old kid coming in with all the fanfare of, like, something the Flyers have not had in a long time is this amount of attention. I think to maybe keep the locker room a little happy, you might have to crack the whip a little just to, hey, man, yeah, we sat Sean Couturier last year. We can't make exceptions for you, dude. Like, the longest tenured athlete on the team, one of the longest tenured athletes in the city, the dude we gave the captaincy a month ago, got healthy scratched. You're not above it either.
Yeah.
I do think there is going to have to be a little bit of that.
And, I mean, there absolutely will be that behind closed doors because the famous tape sessions they have behind closed doors, everybody gets ripped. No one is safe in those sessions. Tortorella rips everyone. It's like, we're all equally piles of crap in John Tortorella's eyes in those tape studies. But I do agree that it will be important for John Tortorella if he wants to sustain this culture of accountability that over the last 2 years he's tried to create, that look, these players know hockey. They know when a guy is told to do something and then doesn't do it. They see it. They all see it on the bench. They see it if they're on the ice with them. They know. And if John Tortorella lets it slide when he didn't let it slide with a bunch of other guys, you're going to have grumbling. You're going to have grumbling where, I'm trying to think of a guy like a Bobby Brink. It's like
Brink gets sent down.
Last year, I did that same thing, and you benched me and you sent me down. And when Michkov did it, he just patted him back and said, "Good job."
Farabee had a 56-second game last year.
Yeah,
like these Morgan Frost. All he does is score for the team.
Yeah.
And they're like, but we don't like him.
There will be guys who will crumble.
Yeah.
So I do agree that Tortorella will have to make it abundantly clear that it's not like there are two sets of rules. Everybody still follows the same rules. Otherwise, he risks screwing up what he's built over these 2 years and this accountability and the culture that the Flyers believe is so important. That is true.
All right. And that's like the show, Charlie.
That's like, one thing I did want to point out, we mentioned this at the beginning of the conversation about Michkov, about reasonable expectations. Here is what I would say is, I wouldn't even call it the low end, but I'm going to make a comparison here with Matvei Michkov, because obviously Michkov didn't play in the NHL the year after being drafted. So I'm mostly looking at draft plus 2 seasons. Jack Hughes in his draft plus 2 season scored 31 points in 56 games. I would not be shocked if Michkov ends up doing something like that. That would be a 45-point pace over 82. Means he missed some time because Hughes missed some time. He's a smallish guy too. Yep. And if that's what Michkov puts up, fans will be disappointed and they will be frustrated because they will be saying, we were sold that this guy's the future, this guy's our savior, and he's just looking like a decent player. The next season, Jack Hughes scored 56 points in 49 games. The season after that, he scored 99 points in 78. So if Michkov doesn't explode in his first year, as long as he doesn't look completely overmatched, I do not think it is the end of the world. Now, it would be better if he scores 80 points in 82 games, doesn't get hurt at all, and runs away with the Calder. That would be awesome. But I don't think it is a death knell for his future superstar potential if he just puts up okay scoring numbers in his first season with the team.
Granted, not the draft pedigree, but a guy that I've seen him compared to a lot. I mean, they're both Russian. Russians always get compared to Russians.
Sure.
Nikita Kucherov, he's a winger. He's a superstar, but not a center. Similar, I think, expectations. Mm-hmm. We need this guy to basically be Nikita Kucherov if our number one player is going to be a right winger.
I think that's fair.
Rookie year, 20 years old, like Michkov's going to be. 52 games, 18 points.
He played real low in that lineup, though.
Yeah, he played 13 minutes a night.
He played lower than Michkov is going to play.
Only 13 minutes. But even like the next couple of years, as his ice time goes up, 65 points, 66. Doesn't have the point a game season until he's 23.
It took time. Remember, he was on that line with Tyler Johnson and Andre Palat, the triplets.
Yeah.
But even then, like, that was the supporting line to Stamkos and the big guns.
So
Michkov's usage is going to be a little different.
He's going to be one of the two best players right away, probably. If not one of the four.
Hopefully.
Unless, like, maybe Tippett's also. Like, these things are possible. But right now I'm looking at it as, like, Konechny and Michkov are the two best players.
He's playing in the
team.
top 6.
He is absolutely playing in the top 6. Whether you want to call it the first or second line, there's not a first line. Right. There's 2 second lines, basically.
It's fair. All right. But you don't have a clear-cut 1C.
Yes.
You don't have a first line.
All right, let's get to the Super Chats, and then let's get out of here. Oh, a couple of them today. The first one from Gary B. says, Sunday, October 13th, Philly will be hopping. Philly's home game, NLCS Game 1, coincides with Eagles-Browns. Let's effing go. I love the doubleheaders, man. I love them.
I'm going to be away, I think. I think that's going to be in the middle of that first road trip, right?
Oh,
because they play
the 11th. They
play
the first
Friday,
game,
and then they play Saturday. They play Friday in Vancouver, then they play Saturday in Calgary. I think I will still be in Calgary. So if it's a hop-in day in Philadelphia, I'll be watching it from the scenic Calgary.
Outstanding, scenic
Scotia Saddle Dome
with all the chill.
I believe is what they call it. Yeah. They did do a really nice. Calgary fans did do a really nice tribute to Johnny Gaudreau. That was nice to see.
From JH, go Birds.
Go Birds.
Absolutely, man.
Go Birds.
Thank you. JH, go Birds.
Go Birds.
All right. From Steve Hanatko. Hey, guys, quick Jet question. Do you think he would benefit from a trade to play on a better junior team, or is he better off staying in Guelph?
It's an interesting question. My initial thought is yes, I think he would benefit from a trade to a better junior team. However, I don't think not playing on a great one is going to kill him. And I think there probably is some benefit towards asking him to carry the load. I do worry a little bit, though, that he might not develop the same creativity that he would develop if he was playing with a bunch of other superstars. I do worry about that a little bit. However, I don't get the sense that Guelph is going to trade him yet. I guess usually those kinds of trades, when guys get moved from a bad team to a good team, they happen around the holiday break. Like, I believe that was when Konechny got traded from the Ottawa 67s to Sarnia.
Sarnia.
He got traded because the Ottawa team wasn't very good. And it was like, okay, well, we're going to send you to a contender. And that's when Konechny outplayed Pavel Zacha on the same team, despite being drafted like 20 picks after him, which was quite funny, especially because Zacha was taken by the Devils, which made it even funnier. I would think if such a trade were to happen, and I've heard nothing to tell me that it is going to happen, it will probably happen halfway through, 2/3 of the way through the year. So don't be holding your breath that it's going to happen right away.
Interesting. All right, and our last one from VNet Singh. Given Luchanko is only 3 weeks from being in the 2025 draft, Can we compare him to top 10 guys like Martone, McQueen, and Misa? Similar production.
I understand that argument. I've seen this a few times on Flyers Twitter over the last few weeks. Some people have mentioned in the Discord that Luchanko is basically a 2025 draft guy, so maybe we should be, the idea of the Flyers might have gotten a steal because he's so young. And I like the optimism. I do. The point I'll make, though, is while it's certainly a benefit that he was young for this draft year and it makes him compare favorably towards guys in this draft year, if we envision a world where he would have been a 2025 person, that would have been a negative. That would have been a black mark. Like Nolan Patrick is a perfect example. He was old for his draft year. Now, granted, the injuries, the migraines played a role, but that might have...
He was a man out there.
that might have been a reason why we overrated Nolan Patrick a bit in his draft year, because he was older than his entire class. Luchanko would be older than McQueen, Misa, those guys. So I don't love the idea of comparing Luchanko's production this year to their production and being like, oh, well, Luchanko's better than all those guys because he scored 97 points and they scored, 91. He still would have been old for that class, and you would have had to ding him a little bit for that had he been a 2025 draft guy. So I get the thought process. I just don't want to go too far in that realm.
I do find it interesting.
Because it is interesting, though. It's an interesting way to look at it.
No, I like the thought process, but... Yeah,
he would have been old for that class, which would have meant that you would have had to ding him a little bit in comparison because he's old for that class, rather than this time you're able to give him the mental boost of, well, he was young for this class, so actually
17 years old.
72 points is more like 80 points.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right.
Which there's like that like girl math. This is like Flyers math.
This is Flyers math.
Flyers math.
It's, whatever we can do. It's been 50 years, man.
Yeah, right?
Whatever we can do to talk ourselves into something, we'll do it.
In reality, Flyers math is probably the other way. Flyers math is whatever you can do to make yourself feel worse.
Yes.
That's real Flyers math.
It depends.
This is positive Flyers math.
It's an optimistic day. When you talk prospects, it's optimistic.
It's Go Birds Day.
Let's go Birds.
And we haven't seen the Birds play yet, so this is the perfect day for optimism.
Yeah, man.
Everything's possibility.
Undefeated.
We haven't seen them lose yet.
All right. And that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, you got to follow us right here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you never miss a live show. We'll be back to you on Monday, in all likelihood at 1 o'clock. But if it changes, I'll let you know on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers for said updates, and follow the podcast wherever you get those. Just search PHLY Flyers. All right. My name's Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Let's go Birds.
Go Birds.
We all silly like the mayor.